Thank you.
No.
All right. Well, welcome to our members and our guests today. I'm Deanne Sinclair, DIA president for the coming year. The two key mandates of the Digital Imaging Association are to provide education and networking opportunities for our members. I hope you find the educational aspect worthwhile, and as always, we invite your feedback. Our membership is comprised of pre-press, printers, packaging converters, designers, advertisers, print buyers, equipment, and consumable manufacturers and vendors. If you are with us as a guest, please consider joining the Digital Imaging Association. Today's session is an example of the high caliber meetings that we run. If you would like more information on membership, please either scan this QR code or contact Marg McLeod at 416-254-4941 or email her at marg, M-A-R-G, at digitalimagingassociation.com. Like most trade associations today, financial stability does not come from membership revenues alone. And so we turn to vendors and suppliers to support our goals. We are honored to continue to receive the support and recognition of the DIA's contribution to the graphics industry from the following companies. First off, our platinum sponsors, Canon, HP, Innovative Displays, INX, Konica Minolta, Landa, Spicers, and Trinet Global Logistics. And a big thank you to our gold sponsors, Adobe, Fujifilm, Graphics Canada, Heidelberg, Kodak, Kongsberg Precision Cutting Systems, Many Giants, and Plastic and Paper. Our sponsors, which include GMG Color, Significance Automation, and Sydney Stone, and our bronze sponsor, Ultimate Tech. Please consider these companies and their demonstrated support of the industry when making your purchasing decisions. We also want to extend our thanks to HP for supplying us with the technology for this webinar. Thank you, HP, for making today possible. I would now like to introduce our moderator for today, Stephen Longmire. He is the National Sales Manager with Sydney Stone and a DIA silver level sponsor. Stephen's role includes researching new product lines and manufacturers to distribute, setting pricing structures, managing Sydney Stone Partner Program, and conceiving and implementing marketing initiatives to support sales efforts. Stephen has served on the DIA board for 8 years. So welcome, Stephen, and thank you so much for moderating the discussion today. I would now like, oh, sorry. I'd now like to pass it off to Stephen and let him take it from here.
Thanks very much, Deanne, and congratulations on your presidency with the DIA this year. Very, very happy to have you on board.
Thank you.
Pleasure. So today's topic is actually considering grant and SRED for printers. So today we're going to learn how to access government grants and SRED, which is an acronym for Scientific Research and Experimental Development Funds for Printers. So our panelist today is Jeff Dumart, president of Grant Synergy. Grant Synergy is a leading Canadian consulting firm that specializes in government funding solutions. Jeff has a Bachelor of Business Administration degree from Wilfrid Laurier University, and his deep expertise has allowed him to successfully guide businesses through the often complex and changing landscapes of grants, incentives, and funding programs. Under his leadership, Grant Synergy has built a strong reputation for optimizing cash flow planning and helping clients take full advantage of the financial support available to them, from grants to tax incentives. Thank you for joining us today, Jeff.
Thank you.
Pleasure. We also have Ada Young, Chief Operating Officer from McRae Imaging from Mississauga. Ada has worked with Grant Synergy and will answer questions dealing with the many details of government funding. She has over 25 years of experience and extensive global expertise in driving business growth and operational excellence. Ada has managed a workforce of over 500 employees and has successfully built manufacturing plants, sourced machinery and equipment, formed and led international teams, developed company strategies, created product lines, managed product life cycles, positioned brands in the market, and secured new business opportunities. Her extensive expertise and strategic leadership have consistently resulted in the successful growth and development of the companies she has led. Thank you very much, Ada, for joining us today.
Thank you.
I would also like to encourage people that are joining us both virtually as well as physically at the HP location there. If you have questions for either of our panelists, please feel free in the chat to direct it to either Jeff or Ada, and I'll pose the question to them directly. If you don't have it directed to a specific panelist, I'll pose it to both panelists as a whole. If either Ali or Marg wouldn't mind in the chat as well, letting me know if someone has their hand up in the room because it's harder to see there, I'll be happy to take those questions as well. So first I'll begin with Jeff. I'll pose this question. What grants are applicable to those of us in the printing industry?
Start with a loaded question. So lots of opportunities out there, depending on the way your company is structured, whether you're a manufacturer or a distributor or a service company, different funding programs are available to you. The bulk and the most opportunities are for the manufacturers themselves. So if you are printing, that is considered a manufacturer. There's 4 different areas of government funding grants in addition to SRED. So the government grant areas is human resources, so including hiring grants and training grants. There is R&D opportunities outside of SRED that you can take advantage of. There is funding for capital expenditures and leasehold improvements and expansions to facilities, as well as funding for increasing your international or export sales. Should I go into more detail on all of those, Stephen, or?
Oh, feel free, Jeff. There's a lot of people like both,
sure.
who are like
And
intimately
keep in mind
engaged
that
with
you don't have to
businesses.
take, yeah, perfect. So you don't have to take a ton of notes here. We will send some details to Mark. She'll distribute that after on kind of the nuances and the eligibility of each program. So the first area, HR. So HR opportunities, one of the most, I would say, staple programs. It's been around for 10 plus years. It covers third-party training to offset the training costs up to 83% of the third-party training costs to a max of 10K per trainee. So this could be anything from sales training, leadership training, software training, ERP training, which Ada will speak to more details on later. But we've had a lot of success with this program. It is all across Canada, so every province has a similar variation of the program. So here in Ontario, it's called the Canada-Ontario Job Grant. In Alberta, Canada-Alberta Job Grant. In BC, different names, same criteria, BC Employer Training Grant. All provinces, even out east, have the same opportunity here, except Quebec doesn't quite have this program. So there are some other opportunities there, but it's not quite the same as the previous provinces. In addition to that program, from it's every year, sometimes every 2 years, there is funding available for internal training. So some of you might have heard of the Eves Landry Grant or the Ames Global. It changes from year to year. We expect that to probably launch later in 2025. The great thing with that program is it covers the third-party training costs as well as the internal training costs. So if you want to train your staff internally to get up to speed with different equipment or whatever the case might be, internal training, as long as it's improving productivity, those costs are eligible and they will cover the employee's wages as well as the trainers, the manager's time while they are being trained. The other opportunity is hiring grants. So with these 2 programs, in most cases, if you are incorporated in Canada or LLP, however you're structured, as long as you're operating in Canada, you can take advantage of the training grants. Same for the hiring grants. So these are applicable regardless of where you're located. Federal programs, lots of different hiring programs out there that change from time to time. So I'd say that's probably the biggest challenge with government funding is staying on top of these programs. So when you do work with us, we make sure we keep you up to speed, inform you of the different programs that are out there. So right now, currently there is funding available if you were to hire any students. So co-op students that are either in a college or university program, they will fund up to 70% of their wages to a maximum of $7,000 per co-op. Depending on the role and the industry you're in, there's different streams that we can apply through. A lot of the time, some people might have applied through one and find out that they're out of funds, but there are about 8 different streams that you can apply through. So if you found out they're out of funds in one particular stream, we can likely find a different stream to get you funded through. The other area is for full-time recent graduates. These are federal programs as well. The best time to be applying for these or looking out for these is around the April time period, aligning with the university graduation time period. But currently there is a program for environmental related positions. So if you were to hire a specific role that has environmental benefit or impact, they will fund 80% of their wages for the first year, up to $25,000. Moving on to the other areas. So the next area is for R&D opportunities. So I won't go into too much detail on the SRED side of things, focus more on the grant side of things here. The biggest difference with grants and SRED is government funding grants are proactive, meaning you apply ahead prior to starting your project, or you apply prior to the intake closing before you incur your cost. Where SRED funding is retroactive, you can go back 18 months from your fiscal year end and get a tax credit for R&D activities. On the R&D side for grants, it's a little bit more niche. They're focusing on one particular project. The most common program is called IRAP, Industrial Research Assistance Program. This program will cover 80% of internal wages for a specific R&D project and 50% if you have to outsource to Canadian contractors. IRAP right now is pretty much out of funding. April 1st or just prior to that, when the government fiscal year gets a top up, is your best time to be applying through IRAP. It's a little bit of a unique process in the sense that you actually have to reach out to an ITA rep, an industrial technology advisor, pitch your project, and if they like your project, then they'll provide you with the application that you can move forward accordingly. So we'll help prepare you for that initial meeting, make sure that you wow the ITA in order to get access to that application. The next area is expansion and capital expenditures. So now it's a great time to be looking at this one. FedDev is a very popular program. It's been around for 10 plus years now. They just came out with a couple new streams late October. So they have the standard stream, which is called Grow, Innovate, and Compete. This is for any company that is in Ontario. There are some similar variations back in Western Canada as well, but this one's for companies in Ontario. They'll cover 50% of the cost of an expansion related project. So any capital equipment expenditures, leasehold improvements, expansions to the facilities are covered at up to 50% to a maximum $10 million zero interest loan. So FedDev is repayable funding. So when we say loans, it's repayable. This one is 4 years of no payment, 0%. So the duration of the project up to 4 years with an additional year grace period to pay that, start paying it back. And then an additional 5 years to pay that back all at 0%. So when you add it all up, you're almost looking at about 10 years, 0% loan you could take advantage of. This program can be stacked with provincial funding. So depending on where you're located in Ontario, again, different opportunities here, but Ontario, they have 3 different streams depending on your location. One is the Eastern Ontario Development Fund. So really looking at east of Ajax going up towards Ottawa. They have AMIC, which just stands for Advanced Manufacturing Innovative Competitiveness. This is your GTA related regions. And then you have Southwestern Ontario Development Fund, which starts roughly around the Guelph area, going down towards Windsor, skipping the Hamilton region and going down to St. Catherine. All the same program in terms of what they're funding, just different names depending on where you're located. AMIC's not currently open, but the SWODF, SWODF, and EODF is currently open with an intake closing January the 28th. So we can stack the two of them. They fund the same amount, same criteria. The Provincial funding is looking more on the job creation side of things. So if you're investing into new equipment or facility expansions, they want to see that you'll have an impact on the economy by creating new jobs. So they require a minimum of 5 new jobs by the end of the project. That can take place over the next 4 years. Doesn't have to happen right away in the first year. 5 is a minimum. To be competitive, we suggest at least 10, 15, depending on where you're located, just because it is such a competitive application. There is a little bit of a hybrid structure with this program. So again, depending on where you're located, the number of employees you have in your company, if you're in a rural region, so rural is classified as having under 100,000 people live in that town or city, and you have less than 100 people within the company, you can apply straight for the grant stream. So a non-repayable grant covers 15% of the total eligible cost to a maximum of 500,000. If you are above 100 or you're non-rural, then you apply for the standard stream, which is a 15% zero interest loan up to a max of 5 million. And if you meet your KPIs, they will forgive 30% of that loan to a maximum of $500,000 grant. So as mentioned, we can stack the two of them. You do have to wait to incur your expenses until those intakes have closed. So you don't have to wait until the approval, like some programs do require that. This one requires intake to close. FedDev's intake is coming up on December the 20th, and SWADF or EODF is January the 28th. So if you do plan to stack the two of them, you should wait until January 28th before you start to incur your expenses. Those are the two largest opportunities open right now. From time to time, there's some niche CapEx opportunities that will open up. We've seen Drive Forward, for example, would cover equipment related costs up to 150,000 grant. There's some environmental programs that come out from time to time. They go quickly, so generally it's a first come, first served basis. Usually it's we're seeing once they're open up, especially for the capital equipment programs, are usually depleted within the first 2 to 3 months max. And then the last areas is expansion into the US or any other markets outside of Canada. There's a popular program called Can Export. So it's been around for a number of years. It's a marketing grant, so it covers 50% of marketing related expenses to a maximum of 50K to grow your international sales. I will caution this program, it is very competitive. It's a federal program, so anywhere across Canada, you can apply for this. Because it's so popular, they aren't awarding as much as they are advertising. So realistically, we're seeing closer to half of that 50K, anywhere between 20 to 30K if you're successful in that program. It does cover your traditional marketing costs, so online related efforts, Google AdWords, SEO related costs, as well as trade shows. So as long as your trade shows are outside of Canada, it will cover the exhibitor costs, the shipping, the travel to the trade shows, your accommodation. You get a per diem of $250 a day for 2 reps, as well as follow-up meetings to meet with potential clients or prospects. Those trips can be included as well. And then accounting and legal fees as well, as long as it's related to the US or international expansion. And that's a quick overview on the different opportunities there. So,
Perfect. No, thanks. My next question would be for Ada. What projects at McRae Imaging were the grants utilized for, if you're able to let us know those?
Oh, we did use the Canada Ontario Job Grant Program that Jeff mentioned too, and it is a very good one and smooth one to be used, and we met the criteria that it required. Yeah.
So I'll just maybe add on that a little bit. So yeah, we used that. They recently implemented a new ERP system, and we leveraged that program to get the employees trained on the new system. So we roughly, we were fairly successful in that, but there was a couple of hiccups. So I'll let Adam maybe speak to that later. But in the end, we did persevere and were successful.
Yep.
Oh, actually, that's a great little segue then, Jeff. And in terms of perhaps some of the stumbling blocks maybe you saw with that specific program, or or other ones in terms of grant applications, what do they tend to be? Is it sometimes the customer who you're working on their behalf not having the correct information readily available in a timely manner, or maybe you can elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I don't claim this as a stumbling block, but then everything go very smooth. In the beginning, we draft sign and let me know what is the requirement, all those detail, what is the document we need, and then every step is very smooth until until a little bit accident happen is on the surface facilitator side. The facilitator is resign and leave the sign. So make the time has a little hiccup and then timely manner a little delayed and then come out with a denied application on the first thing. But then Jeff is so helpful. I mean, we communicate like back and forth so tightly, and then he tell me how to do, what to do, and then he also let me know what is the alternative plan, how we can make it work, and then we make a decision like stop, and then and then we do it immediately, and then everything happens so smoothly, and then we got the game.
I'd just like to remind our attendees either in the room or virtually as well, please feel free to either raise your hand in person or submit a chat question. I'll be happy to pose that to the panelists as well. The next question, you'll probably definitely elaborate on this, but what are some of the challenges with working with government funding programs? I assume sometimes it's kind of tied to either provincial election cycles or federal election cycles, depending on certain initiatives that they're pushing. But yeah, if maybe I'll just start with Jeff, and then Ada, if you wanted to add anything afterwards, please feel free.
I'd say the biggest challenge is timing. A lot of the time people want to start the project yesterday, and you have to wait either for approval or for the intake to close. So that can be a challenge, especially some of the programs that take upwards of 3-4 months to receive that approval, or even just to get the decision back, because obviously you might not go forward with a certain project if you don't secure those funds. So that can definitely be a challenge. Planning ahead, I'd say that's probably the biggest advice we can say is if you're going to start something and you know you're going to start it within a year's time frame, is to start looking at the government funding opportunities.
Is that typical, 1 year?
Not necessarily. It really depends on the programs. So the larger programs, they're upwards. It's like FedDev, for example, you're looking at about 6 months to get decisions back on it.
It's a long time.
The province is a little bit quicker. So province commit to 60 days. So once the intake closes,
Okay.
there's 3 months, and they do fulfill that time period. So on that exact date, they will give their decisions out. The other challenge is becoming first. When I say first come, first served, to really jump on these. A lot of the time people, they get to it, they don't give us necessary information back. And by the time we go and start writing the application, we get a notification that they're out of funds. So
There are often brokers involved, like an in-between person. It seems like a complicated process.
like lobbyists, some of the larger ones, there you can work with lobbyist firms to help kind of promote your project and get some political
Or
help.
to even fill out the paperwork.
So that's what we do. I mean, that's
Okay.
our role. Is we haven't really spoke kind of more about grant synergy. I'm sure it's the question Stephen was going to ask there, but we help to mitigate the time involved on your side. So we have info collection templates for each application. So yeah, there's the basic information we'll need to collect, and then you're assigned to one of our team leads. That's usually about an hour of your time just to get to know more information about your company, your project, and then we go draft up the full application on your behalf. A little bit of back and forth in between there, but depending on the application, some of these applications are 40, 50 plus pages. And it's obviously time consuming for you to stop you from your original role. So our goal is to mitigate that time and obviously increase your chance of success, because we write so many of these, we know how to position them, we know the different buzzwords to use, the buzzwords what not to use, especially with that COJG program, the training one. In some cases, they might actually try to trick you into saying, hey, is this consulting or is this training? So you really got to be careful in how you're positioning the applications.
added. Do you have anything as well?
I think my side, like one thing is that when we do the application form internally, a lot our team member, like we have some personal information that they need to fill up with the form, and then while we collect this, some people skip OC number, some people skip their education background. I mean, we need to really carefully about every single form that we hand it out. Otherwise, one form is not okay, then the whole package will be waiting for on the table and putting on the table, and then need another 10 days to go maybe.
Absolutely, no, good point there. Attention to detail is a very important thing with these government applications. Clicking the wrong box or missing information. In some cases, if you fill out the entire application, but you miss one small section, you might have said, oh, we're gonna go back to that, or you decide, you know, we need to answer that. Just based on the initial review process, it can actually completely decline your application. So making sure you get a full application, don't miss anything, can really determine if you're successful or not.
How much is automated behind the scenes?
The initial phase of it does go through an automated
That's why that would
system.
stop it?
Exactly. So it's even if it's just a small
That's why-
thing, it gets kicked back by the system. So.
And then when does it become personal? Like, do they phone?
Then it depends on, each program is different. The larger ones, so your larger expansion programs, they will get assigned to an Ontario rep that's back and forth. They'll ask you certain questions about the project, or follow-up details on the financials. Can you fulfill this project? So I'd say submitting the application, that's really half of the work. So once you submit it, it's not like, okay, let's wait back and wait for a decision. In some cases that might be the case, but for the larger ones, there is a lot of due diligence that goes into it. So working through us, we can actually be on those calls. We can communicate directly with the government reps to answer the question on their behalf, just to make sure the proper information is given and you don't say the wrong thing at the same time.
Jeff, question. So I mean, hearing this, I would think this is critical, having services like from a company like yourself. When you're first starting out, you know, your first time doing this, there's just so much on the menu.
Exactly.
How do you charge for those services?
Yeah, great question. So depending on the program, we can charge either a contingency fee, meaning that we won't invoice unless you're successful. We have a really high track record of the application that we write. So we stand behind our work, and when applicable, when we're able to, it's a success fee. It ranges depending on which program we're going into and what your budget is or what your funding asks. So it can go anywhere from 20% is typically on the highest side of our engagements. We can go as far down to 3% when you're going for some of these larger $1 million applications. We work on just to add to that, we work on a per program basis. So we don't hold you accountable to do every single thing with us. For instance, you might start out with the hiring grant or training grant. We teach you how to do it, and the next time around you do it yourselves. We're not going to hold you to do everything and come back with us. So per program engagements.
Jeff, what's your
that was just a question posed by Dennis in our chat field. So that Dennis, I hope that was applicable for you. So sorry, continue.
what would be your win ratio?
Depends on the program. So overall, we're 97% of success rate. So we typically don't take something on unless we're quite confident it's going to win. And there are some, just to backtrack a little bit, in some cases, federal programs, we legally can't engage on a contingency fee. So FedDev states that in the contribution agreement, you didn't work with the consultant, success fee basis. So for those particular ones, we charge a flat consulting fee. Again, depending on the program or your budget, or flat fees, probably closer to around a 10%, 5% flat fee. So regardless of the outcome, we still invoice on that. But at the same time, we won't engage with someone just for the sake of saying, hey, let's collect the money and write this. If we don't think it's going to be a win, we'll advise of that and disengage.
Yeah, so that kind of sort of add on to that, Jeff, too, or add it to, are there certain steps to avoid for being rejected, or sort of the best to better your chances of the approval? I know you did reference, Jeff, kind of the buzzwords to avoid, those to leverage and utilize. I'm sure they're always shifting depending on focuses and things like that. But are there other sort of steps to avoid when submitting a grant or working with you on the grant?
Yeah, I'll maybe start with that, Ada, and if you can, if I miss anything, feel free. So positioning it is very key, especially with the COJG program. Certain words that they won't, as soon as they see the word, it's immediately a decline. So COJG and Alberta Job Grant and all across Canada, those are training grants. No, they get disconnected there. Might have got kicked off of the internet.
Yeah, this will
You can still hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
My bug shot there. So certain things you have to stay away from. Some of these programs, the application itself is not overwhelming, like the COJG application. It's a shorter application. It's about 2 or 3 pages, but it's how you position it. It's the strategy behind it, the words that you're using in order to come out with a successful application. So consulting, implementation, software, coaching, if you're using these words, immediately the reviewers think this is consulting and deem it ineligible. If you start the training prior to, if you pay anything prior to, these will kick you out immediately. So just from doing so many of these, we know how to position it, the words to avoid, to ensure that you are successful with that program. The other hurdle is really timing of everything. I know I kind of went on this already, but if you start your spend in some cases prior to the approval, that will deem your application ineligible. If you put deposits down, sometimes it deems it ineligible. Each program is different. Some do allow deposits, but they don't allow you to put it within the budget itself. So again, it's just a matter of doing a lot of these applications before you kind of know the ins and outs of how to position it.
Mhm.
Ada, do you have anything to add in terms of expand?
I think also the communication between Jeff and me is very important for the success grant we get because whenever we receive any question from them, and then we will communicate before we reply and see what is the detail that what we need to provide and make sure everything go correctly.
That's a great point. In some cases, we try to draft up the replies on behalf of our client just so they don't say something accidentally in error. Sometimes it might just be, you think it's a quick reply back to the reviewer and you just say the wrong thing. Oh yeah, we started this last week or something along those lines, and immediately if you send the wrong reply, that could disqualify the entire application. So excellent point there, Ada.
Thanks.
I have another question posed by Steve, who's submitted in the chat here. I'll start with Ada. Do you provide these services for other industries as well?
So Ada or myself?
Oh, Ada, yeah, I will start with Ada on this one. So instead of, like, obviously today we're key on the printing industry based on our membership composition, but do you provide these services to other industries as well?
Oh, sure. We definitely do it. I mean, welcome. And any specific detail we can talk. And whatever we can do, we can help.
So the grant synergy side, yeah, we work with all companies across Canada, depending on, doesn't matter what industry they're in. I would say certain industries are more favorable to work with for government funding. The government really likes to promote the food and beverage, the auto industry is another factor. Any advanced manufacturing, so printing, if you are doing something innovative in the printing sector, those are the type of projects the government likes to support.
I have another question here posed by Niraj. Jeff, I'll start with you. What kind of time is required to complete the paperwork? And I know it'll be drastically different. Like you'd mentioned, some are quicker and shorter applications than others. And also, how much personal involvement is required? I guess you'd have to have a key person to take responsibility for it at the applying company that you would liaise with. But yeah, kind of how much personal involvement was required with the customer, and how much time, sort of a sliding scale of shortest to longest, perhaps.
Great question. As you mentioned, it depends on the program. So really, when you're asking for more money, there's more involvement involved with that. So smaller applications like a training grant, it can be anywhere. If it's a smooth process, it can be an hour of your time of gathering the information and a little bit due diligence after the fact. For the larger, if you're looking to do an expansion project where you're asking for a few $100,000 or $1 million, that takes a lot more information to pull from the client. So probably anywhere between 2 to 5 hours, sometimes 10 hours, depending on the scope of the project. On our side, again, it varies, but the larger ones, we need about 2 weeks as a minimum to write the applications, especially the ones that are 40, 50 plus pages, just to ensure that we write a strong application. We're not just putting words together to fill the application. We need at least 2 weeks to prepare a competitive application. So on that note, with the FedDev program coming up December the 20th, we would want clients to have engaged with us by early December.
Do you ever get involved after someone's applied? Like, let's say someone personally applies? Sorry for interrupting. Can't see my hand.
Yeah, we've done a little 2 steps to that. So one, we've had clients that have applied on their own and had a decline, and they say, hey, you know what, we tried this, we failed, can you help us out? A lot of the time we are successful in getting them approved the next time. They just might not position it properly. Other times we work with clients where they've written 95% of the application, but they just want us to review it, to strengthen it, provide input in areas they might miss something or to position it properly. And then in some cases, clients where they've actually submitted it and they didn't realize there's a due diligence process, and then they engage us as well. So anytime we're happy to step in.
I'm just waiting for another online attendee, Jennifer, who's going to be posting a question here shortly. But in the meantime, in terms of suppliers and vendors, are there programs that can take advantage of? I know, Jeff, you'd mentioned like sales training, possibly like CRM training as well. In addition to that, are there other ones for suppliers and vendors?
Yeah, so non-manufacturing, not as many opportunities, but they can still take advantage of the staple programs I mentioned, the training one, the hiring grants, as well as the CanExpert program, so the marketing program. Each program has a certain criteria. So to qualify for the majority of them, you're looking at companies that have been established for some time. So minimum 3 years in operations in Canada, manufacturing or plans to manufacturing. You still have that 3 years operation. Might be someone that's outsourcing the manufacturing. You want to bring it in-house. As long as your operation for 3 years, you have your 3 years of financials. In most cases, you're profitable or on the way to be profitable. That's generally the minimum criteria to apply for the bulk of these opportunities.
Yep.
Actually, I'll start this question with Ada. So the question as it was posed here is, how long does the process from introduction until payment? But what I might also just amend it to is, how long from the program approval for funding till payment is received?
After it approved, we receive money like almost 30 days. Yeah. Yeah. And almost 70% of the total lump sum, and then they will release the rest of it after sometimes later we started the training.
Okay, so you have to kind of hit your KPIs to get the rest of the funding for that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so each program is different. So the COJG, once you're approved, they will release 70% of the approved amounts once you show proof of payment to the vendor. And then Adam mentioned that remaining 30%, the holdback, is released once the training is completed. You get certificates of completion, then they release that right away as well. But each program different. So again, in most cases, it's you show proof of payment, you submit your claims, and they reimburse you. It's very rare that they will actually give the funds up front, unless it's one of the FedDev programs, a loan, for example. Depending on your fiscal year end and when your spend's taking place, they release a portion of those funds at that time.
Here we go. We've got quite a few more coming in the chat. So Jennifer is making it's not really a question per se, but a statement. Some insight into the practical applications for the training and employee development opportunities for printers. So Significance has partnered with Grant Synergy to facilitate training opportunities related to upskilling current staff. So there we go. And Niraj has asked another question. Are there any charges involved to set up for the first meeting with you, Jeff?
No, so everything's complimentary from a initial meeting. So we offer anyone who wants more information and to really get a fit in what opportunities are available to them. We offer a complimentary, generally a half-hour meeting just to get to know more about your company, what your growth strategies are, what your investments are. And then based on that, we will put together a list of all the programs that are applicable to you. So free of charge to do that. And then if you do decide to engage with us on any of those programs, that's when we do it per program basis. So again, you don't have to do everything on that list with us. If there's some you say, hey, we could probably do this or give the time for this, by all means, that's an option.
Quite a few questions coming in. This is great. It's obviously a hot button item here. So Peter has posed a question. Is there a preferred way that manufacturers, suppliers, and service providers can provide SOWs, quotes, or action plans for a successful approval approach?
So generally, clients or companies have budgeted. So if you meet on a yearly basis or quarterly basis and you project out 2 or 3 years, that's probably our easiest way to identify different opportunities for you. So we share a copy of your budget and we'll look at the different opportunities that are out there and align the different funding programs based on what your upcoming budget is. So super helpful if you are proactive, you do have that budget handy. It makes our lives a lot easier as well, and we can maximize your funding opportunities.
And I remember you were referenced that one process person had quit who was integral to the application process, and that kind of delayed some parts of an application in the beginning. Who is the most likely person to take responsibility for gathering the information on behalf of the company? I assume it kind of varies company to company and how they're structured, but yeah, obviously you had somebody who was the key point, and then they moved on. So yeah, did you kind of designate someone who's responsible for gathering the information necessary?
I really do it by myself because I don't want to make any mistake in between, because while we are handling like 25 people for this application, and then everyone give us the detail, and then so many versions to coming out, and then we need to make sure every version is correctly, and then combine things together to hand in one time. Every time is one time. If any single document change, and then we cannot just hand in that specific document to them. We need to reorganize everything together as one pack and send it over again as another version. So it is very important things to do it.
Yeah, so
you probably deal with many people's. Go ahead. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, it was great to have just one. We prefer having kind of one point of contact versus having multiple people kind of coming back with us with different information, but it's not always the case. So someone, you might have to have different people involved as a point person. Generally, someone that's in charge of overseeing the overall budget is someone we'd like to work with, someone that's might be managing the project, just so we get additional details on the technical side of things within the application. But in most cases, 1 or 2 people as the main point of contact is sufficient to gather all the information that we would need.
Can an application be amended after submission?
Depends on the program. A lot of the time, no. Once that intake closes, or if there's something that needs to change, it's generally you have to submit a new application. That being said, we're actually going through one right now that is being amended slightly just because their project has changed. But by doing so, it does delay the application approval process. So what they would do is they put it on a hold on their end, and eventually no one is looking at it, reviewing it until those changes have been amended. So definitely slows down the process to go back in the queue to get reviewed. So if you were being reviewed and other projects come in at that time, you're to the back of the line. So we have one client right now that we actually submitted an application in January of last year that they've changed their project, I think about 4 times now, and it's finally off hold and moving ahead, but it's been over a year for that particular one.
Impressive. I know in my previous role, when I was publisher for Print Action, I applied for both federal and provincial grants for digital innovation and things like that, and it was quite an eye-opening experience. So having somebody like I'm sure Ada was able to have Jeff ease that process. I know I definitely could have used some help myself, but no, at the end they were successfully received. But yeah, it's a big learning curve. So to be able to utilize a service like Grant Synergy would definitely be a plus for sure. And it looks like you might have your first customer here from the seminar today, Jeff. He's asking for contacts to be shared to set up the first meeting. So there you go.
Wonderful. Amazing.
Have a question too, in terms of training that was submitted here. What are the criteria for training programs? Is it like for vendor certified training, post-secondary, community college? Like, are there certain criteria for training that have to be mapped out? Sort of quantitative things to be checked, or?
Yeah, so good question. So in terms of the trainers themselves, they do prefer Canadian vendors. In some cases, depending on the service provider, they want to see an Ontario vendor for the Ontario programs, BC for BC. They do make exceptions to that. So if, let's say, you had some companies that are owned by a US parent company and everyone's already doing the training on the US side, you can make the argument that you want the entire company to have the same trainer. So if they're outside of Canada, they generally do allow that. The trainer themselves have to be minimum 2 years experience. So it can't be someone that just started training and they go set up a website and a CRA number. They do have to have experience for at least 2 years. The type of training is fairly broad. Everything is covered through a third party except for your certification courses. So if you're looking to get farther designation for an accounting type role, those are not covered. Health and safety, so just a mandatory requirement already. Health and safety training, for example, is one of the areas they don't cover as well. But apart from that, it is pretty broad.
Perfect. So again, another call for questions, either online or in the room. Rob, do you have any questions?
What if a company name changes in the middle of the process? Limited company or, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we've had that happen before. So you just get submitted amendment to the application to the reviewer. That's a fairly easy change. We can work with that, no problem.
I have an interesting question here. Is something if it's co-developed with a supplier or vendor for a Canadian printing company, is it eligible if it's co-developed with the supplier?
Yeah, so like an R&D project, is that what?
Perhaps. I think that might be what's inferred by this. Yeah.
Yeah, so as long as they are Canadian partnership, then yes, and again, depending on the program, some programs require that it is one individual doing it. So IRAP, for example, if you are co-developing it, the applicant that is applying has to own the IP, the intellectual property at the end of it. Their costs can still be covered with the co-applicant, so 50% of their costs can be funded. And then in some cases, they actually do prefer collaboration amongst companies that are Canadian. NGen, for example, is a popular program that requires collaboration with 2 to 3 different vendors that are coming together with a unique new product line or a process that is combined with 3 or more companies. I didn't speak to every single program, so if there are some people that are doing collaboration projects, there are opportunities out there for that as well.
Here's a question. We've touched on it a little bit. I think you did mention this, Jeff, in terms of facility expansion, but are there, maybe I'll start with Ada to see if you've actually leveraged these specific funding programs for facility expansion or upgrading equipment to more automation.
Oh yeah, we are open for this. We actually have many new machine we are planning to buy as well. So we are also looking for opportunity or collaboration and make things work too.
Jeff, I know you'd mentioned a couple of them in terms of facility expansion, but maybe you could just reiterate that for the facility and/or equipment expansion.
Yeah, so both those options opportunities would cover under the FedDev program, so the Grow, Innovate, and Compete. FedDev also does have a stream the home building initiative. So if there's anything that you're doing innovative to help with buildings and homes and like reducing the cost of homes these days, that can be funded through that stream. Same as the general stream, but just a little bit more niche, less competitive. That was zero interest loan up to 5 or 10 million, depending on the stream. And then again, the two other programs I mentioned, UODF or SWADF or AMEC, those can also cover CapEx or facility expansion. With facility expansion, I will add to that, depending on what it is you're doing. So if you're building a completely new building that's not attached to an existing facility, they won't cover the new build. The shell of it, everything inside of it is covered. So your HVAC, your electrical, plumbing, obviously equipment is all covered in that. But the shell of it is not something that can be covered unless it's attached to the previous facility. So some clients, for example, just put a little bit of a breezeway, covered breezeway into the new facility. It could be 100 meters long, and that then can get everything covered.
And then I assume too, depending on like, high efficiency LED lighting, perhaps more energy efficient HVAC systems, there's other sort of environmental grants you could tie into that as well, in addition to.
There are some niche ones that come up from time to time. Saving on energy is a popular one that's still around. So new LED lightings, for example, depending on what it is you're doing, there's a list of how much they will fund on their website. Not as big money as some of the FedDev ones, but within the FedDev applications, that's just one of their mandates, is to really promote and improve environmental related projects. So although it might be not directly related to what you're doing, indirectly it could help with the overall success of your project.
What if the company is located in Canada, but it's foreign owned?
That's fine. It'll as long as the expenses are coming to the Canadian entity, the benefits are coming to the Canadian entity, you're still eligible. Where it will get different is on the SRED side of things. So if you're not Canadian controlled private corp, it does reduce the amount of funding you can get back when you're filing a SRED claim.
We do have another question submitted by Nicole. What sort of projects have been approved as a SRED claim?
Yes, I mean, SRED, the great thing about SRED is you don't have to be successful to be approved through it. So it's about where IRAP, they want to see that you're successful, the likelihood of it will take place. For SRED, they're really supporting the idea of trying new things, trial and error, being innovative, and they don't want to diminish you from failing and trying something new. So it really varies. Many different things. If it's something new, something that you don't have answers to, and there's trial and error involved with it, there's a good chance that you could apply for SRED and be successful through that.
Ada, I saw you nodding emphatically. So you've had submitted projects for SRED as well?
Yeah, I just came back from Taiwan, and then we have so many innovation project, energy saving project is coming out very soon. And yeah, if there is anything that we can help, we can serve, we can collaborate together. This is something the area that we can talk more detail offline too. So yeah.
I think we're due for a follow-up call on it.
Perfect. I have a question here for Jeff. What is your favorite, quote, grant program to deal with in terms of maybe speed, efficiency, or diverse reach? Or I'll let you decide how you want to.
Yeah, I mean, lots of different programs over the years. These programs changed year to year. Some of the programs that were my favorite no longer exist today. I would say COJG is one that I really know the most. It's back of my hand. I know that program in some cases more than the actual reviewers themselves. So I don't know if it's a favorite, but it's definitely one that I enjoy working with and getting client success through it. Marketing programs, depending on the program, can be favorable or in some cases least favorable. So it really changes from year to year. CanX used to be a really great program and just got oversubscribed, and it went from one of my favorites probably to one of my least favorites. So it changes from time to time. I can't think of an exact one right now, but the Southwestern Ontario Development Fund. We've had a lot of success in the last 2 intakes through that one. So when we're winning, that's a favorite program for me, sure.
Absolutely. Ada, for you from the other side, any sort of favorite grant programs that you really enjoy?
In the progress, I feel everything is like communication, and then everything is going very smooth. I enjoy the collaboration with Glenn Synergy, and then I mean, once things we tell them, and then they will exactly tell us what is next step, and then if there is any blockages, yeah, they will guide us to the right pace. And I really enjoy the whole process, and yeah, and thank you for that too.
You're too kind. That's where we didn't pay her for this.
Exactly. I'll pose the same sort of question to both of you. I'll start with Jeff on this one. How would you sort of convey to the people that are on the calls today that it is worth the hassle of interfacing with the government, both provincially or federally, because there's real value in these programs? So.
Well, no, absolutely. And when one thing working through us, and just kind of get a feel for your company and for your project, we won't waste your time or take a lot of your time. If we don't think it's going to be a strong project, we can generally identify that quite early in the process and won't advise pursuing something. So when we do think there's a good fit, we will advise, hey, this is worth your time. You're going to get hundreds of thousands back. I would say it's worth 5-10 hours of your time for sure. So,
Ada, like you, to the other printers that are here on this call, what would you kind of do to encourage them to actually, it is worth the hassle of dealing with the government for these programs?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, well, if there's no other questions in the room or online, at this point, I'd like to welcome Deanne back to take over the emceeing responsibilities. Deanne, are you there?
I am. Is it not showing my screen for some reason? Can you hear me?
yeah,
Yes.
hear you.
Okay. All right. I'll just be the voice.
There you are. Got ya.
Okay, there we go. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Stephen, Nada, and Jeff, for such a great discussion today. I also want to once again take the time to thank our sponsors. Our platinum sponsors, again, are Canon, HP, Innovative Display, INX, Konica Minolta, Landa, Spicers, and Trinet. I also would like to thank our gold sponsors, Adobe, Fujifilm, Graphics Canada, Heidelberg, Kodak, Kongsberg Precision Cutting Systems. I always have a hard time with that one. Mini Giants, Plastic and Paper. And our silver sponsors, GMG Color, Significance Automation, and Sydney Stone. And our bronze sponsor, Ultimate Tech. And once again, a big thank you to HP for your ongoing support in hosting this meeting. As always, today's session has been recorded and the recording will be posted to the DIA YouTube page. The link will be available within a week. If you would like it, please email marg@digitalimagingassociation.com. A knowledge resource synopsis will also be distributed to everyone who has attended today. This is a member benefit the DIA started back in January of 2023 and has been issued for all meetings. We are pleased to be affiliated with Inkish TV. Inkish is the #1 unbiased source of news and information in the global print community. Free access to all Inkish TV events worldwide is available at inkishtv.com, and it's exclusive in North America for DIA members only. I also want to highlight our upcoming DIA events. We've got some exciting stuff in the works. So Wednesday, December 4th at the Boulevard Club is our annual Owners Christmas Luncheon. We will have a keynote speaker, Dr. Mark Hurwitz, doing a session on how to work smarter, not harder. He's a very intelligent man, so really looking forward to hearing what he has to say there. On Wednesday, January 15th, we'll have another session about what to do when the Ministry of the Environment knocks on your door. And on Thursday, June 12th, we're going to have our annual DIA golf tournament at Nottawasaga Resort. Today, the DIA is proud to announce our newest benefit for our members, the Sponsor Spotlight. This is a targeted printing industry news update that will arrive in your inbox as a printable PDF once a month, beginning this month. This e-blast will keep you up to date on the new products and services available from our valued sponsors. It will also include comments on current and future trends and issues while keeping you abreast regarding what's happening at these industry-leading companies. We hope that you find it helpful, and as always, welcome your feedback. Join the DIA today, scan the QR code here, and thank you all for joining us. We hope you found it educational and fun. And in appreciation of everyone's generous contribution of their time and knowledge for today's session, a donation is being made to the Canadian Print Scholarship Fund. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Every questions.
Thank you, Ada.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ada.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Ada. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Deanne. Take care.
David. When Ada says she's just back from Taiwan, she's really just back. from
Right this
Taiwan.
morning.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, the fact that her eyes are open is amazing. Mine would not be.